When you have to shoot, don't talk.
All right, welcome to the Trap House Podcast, everybody. My name is Justin Jett, and this is episode 13. Today's guest is Kris Pope out of Georgia. Had a chance to sit down. Charlie and I got to sit with Kris in the NTA in Missouri. Got to hang out with him for a little bit and pick each other's brains on some stuff. Kris has his own podcast as well called the Coyote Trapping School Podcast. And you'll see during the interview, we kind of go back and forth so he can use the content as well on his end. So it's kind of neat, just kind of doing something different, breaking the rules. So he's asking questions, we're asking questions. It works kind of nice. But before we jump into that, definitely have to give it up to the sponsors. J3O.com for J3 Outdoors, maker of the Hags bracket, and as well as many other great products. Check him out, J3O.com. He's also on Facebook. And Top Lot Stretcher Company. Appreciate them helping us out with this podcast. Their website is toplotstretcherco.com. Check them out. They got awesome adjustable stretchers as well. And, of course, we have HoosierTrapperSupply.com. I will mention the new catalog is out, hot off the press, so you can call and order that at Hoosier Trapper, or you can go to the website and request one right off the homepage. Pretty simple to do. Some new things in there that we haven't had in the past, and of course we got the classic stuff in there too, like Top Dog. And one other thing I want to mention before we jump into it is on Facebook, I started a Facebook group private for trappers. It's called the Catch Circle. Look it up, become a friend on there. I'll accept your request on there. Basically, the page is for anyone and everyone that wants to talk about trapping, share tips, tricks, events. If you make a product, go ahead. There's no real rules per se on there. If it's trapping related, I let it fly. You know, if you got your own bait or lure, go for it. It doesn't matter. So as long as it's all good content and it's showing trapping in a positive light, I'm all for it. So jump on there. It's called the Catch Circle on Facebook. And thanks for tuning in, and let's jump into it. All right, we're rolling. We have a dual podcast going on.
First time ever.
Yep, we're breaking new ground here, and I don't know. Hopefully it works out. We're trying something new. You want to give a little bio on your side of things?
Yeah. That works for me. So I'm Kris Pope. I got a Coyote Trapping School YouTube, podcast, Instagram, all that. And that's what I've been doing it for 6 years now with the YouTube channel. And just my main goal was to, and still is, to just put out educational content, help people. My story is I've always, ever since I've started trapping, run into people that say, man, I've always been interested in that. I've always wanted to learn how to do that, but unless you got somebody that'll show you, and that's how I learned, is people showed me, and it's so tough. So I got to thinking with the how easy it is to put stuff out and for people to view stuff. That'd be a good way to kind of try to introduce people. So I started out putting beaver trapping videos and progressed to coyote trapping and do educational content, and then follow along on my trap line as I run my trap line day to day. No holds barred. I show the good, the bad, and everything, and that's it in a nutshell. Just trying to help promote trapping and get more people that are interested. I guess give them less excuses not to trap. So.
Right. So how did you get started trapping initially then?
So I grew up hunting and fishing, and my uncle, he had a year's worth of old fur fishing game magazines from even before I was born. And something about the Alaska Trapper, just reading through those magazines, Alaska Trap Line and Wilderness Trap Line and all, man, that stuff intrigued me. And I was just pouring through those fur fishing game magazines. And he had trapped a little bit, and so I would talk with him about trapping, and I was always looking for something to keep me outside, any other excuse to keep me outside, and that just seemed to feed right into it. So I started going to the Georgia Trappers Association conventions and just met some super great guys that invited me to go along with them and show me what they knew, and it went from there. So
it's I've been at it 40-some years. I can't get it out of my system yet. It's tough to get over it. So, yeah. And I was kind of the same way. Well, I grew up and I've mentioned this before on the podcast, but watched Daniel Boone, with Fez Parker. And my dad was not a trapper, and my grandpa was just a trapper to control critters around the farm. But that was very interesting to me. And so then but yeah, I think we just all got that mystique idea of trapping, and that's kind of what a lot of gets us started, So,
yep.
But
deep down, there's a mountain man in all of us.
yeah,
That's
I think,
right.
yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you trap just primarily Georgia?
Yep, I've so in the past I've moved around a little bit with jobs. So I lived in Arkansas for a couple of years. So I trapped Arkansas. That's where I started in beaver trapping. I was in South Arkansas, and a lot of water down there, so
right.
Tons of beavers, some nutria. And I've had the chance to go to Texas once, and then so the last year I've kind of started looking at trying to do a little bit more branching out, just to try new things and try to better myself as a trapper. And so I went to Ohio trapping. And so I'm trying to kind of look towards at least one out-of-state trip a year. So this year, if everything works right, I'm planning on going to West Texas.
Okay.
And so that's kind of trying to branch out and trap with other people and trap new places. Just to, like I said, just try to become a better trapper myself.
Right. So did you get an offer through your podcast or show for West Texas?
The Ohio trap line came through my show, actually. Texas is a guy that I knew when I was in Arkansas, and he moved out there. He's a game warden out there, and so he's wanting to kind of get into trapping. So he kind of hooked it up and has got us some land lined up. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Texas is a tougher state to get into because they don't have much public ground and
Yeah.
huge tracts of
You gotta get that
private,
invite.
obviously,
Right.
So you need some sort of starting point.
Yeah,
So,
it definitely is.
It's on our bucket list, but so far it hasn't happened. So
Yeah.
But
So if you're in Texas and you have a bunch of ground, call it.
let us know.
We'll come.
So what about y'all? I know y'all travel a good bit. How does y'all season? How do you view your season in the?
As far as this past season, or
or seasons going forward, do you have a target of trying to like y'all tend to usually trap Arkansas and
we normally try to take two
Right.
different trips, and then trap around home. So we do. Of course, we're selling trapping supplies, and then we do taxidermy as well. So those two are both at their peak busy time when you're supposed to be out trapping. So we're
Right.
always trying to fit in windows of time that we can actually get out and run a line and trap. So what we'll typically do on our Hoosier Trapper Outdoors, we started a semi-live series where we're trapping around home, and then that footage is released probably like what you're doing, released pretty much on when it's happening,
Right.
like a day or two later, or in the course of it'll be over a few weeks, but so that it's current for that season. And then the trips that we take are always a season behind. So
Right.
so we'll right after Christmas we'll take a trip, and then we'll go to somewhere in February. So past 3 years we went to New Mexico. We're going to skip New Mexico this year. To be honest with you, we've struggled in New Mexico just finding ground that had critters.
Yeah.
It's a state where between the good fur prices and the 365-day-a-year predator control in that state, there's areas there's not much left by the time we get there in February. So
Right.
that's something we
Find those pockets that are left.
We've struggled in New Mexico just finding ground. We've always caught stuff, but not like what you would think. So,
Right.
anyways, that one there we're just going to put on the back burner and see if we can come up with something else for New Mexico in the future. But
Gotcha.
that's kind of where we're at. So, but that idea of the out-of-state trip is kind of love the challenge of new ground, coming in trying to figure it out.
Right.
And maybe that's just that grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I don't,
Sure.
one of them things. But like the adventure of it, like the challenge of it, and new animals that you can't necessarily trap at home.
Yep, definitely.
Like you said, the bear was on your bucket list. We'd like to catch bears at some point. Certainly want to catch a mountain lion, and if we could figure out a way to get wolf trapping in, that would be awesome too. So,
Right.
Anyways, that's kind of where we're at. And we, instead of taking a hunting trip, elk hunting trip or whatever, we just take trapping trips.
Right.
So, but not that I wouldn't mind going on an elk trip, but
Well, the cool thing about it is for going on trips, what I like about it is when you're there, that's pretty much what your radar's on. That's the only thing you're doing or thinking about. You're not worried about what's going on at home. I mean, you are to a certain degree, but
Right.
you're there to trap and you're fully invested, and that's what you're doing all day.
Yep.
So that makes it more fun.
Yep.
It's hard to just get up and run a few traps before work and have to worry about it, and
especially that time of year.
life gets in the way of fun.
We're so busy with all the stuff coming in to be mounted for taxidermy, and then very busy with selling trapping supplies. So it's always kind of like when we're trapping around home, which we really enjoy, and there's a lot of stuff to catch, but it's kind of always on the back burner, or the back of your mind goes, like, we need to hurry up and get back to work. You know? So when we're gone, we're gone.
Right.
So of course we're getting phone calls from the shop about whatever. But
It's good.
Yeah. We just make the best of it.
Yeah.
But
So I was just curious, how did Ohio pan out catch-wise when you went?
It was slower than I would have hoped. So I only had a week there, and we actually had pretty good weather. It was wet, but we were able to make it work. We only caught one coyote up there, which was disappointing. And I went before the trapping season opened. So anything that we caught that wasn't a coyote, which we didn't, we caught a couple of big coons that we released. But anything other than that, we had to turn loose. So it was a good experience, and it was, it was worth the trip. But man, that's what with Texas, I said I gotta have at least 2 weeks. A week's just not long enough,
right?
And so that's a whole nother logistical thing. Especially with a job and everything else,
right.
trying to work that time out. So
Yep, we struggle with that, or we always. Things start connecting on the line and things start coming together, and it's like, well, now it's time to go home.
Yeah.
You got to pull them when you had a hot day. And,
yeah.
Oh, man.
We have noticed it, though, in Arkansas, since we've been there so many times, of course, it's lost that new ground appeal.
Right.
But we have been there, and we do enjoy going there, and there's usually plenty of critters to catch. But we have found, though, that once you get to that 7-8 day check, we have started catching the cream off, because we're pretty spread out, and unless we're setting new areas up, then we do notice that we do dip, our catch drops off some, typically, because we're not there long enough for things to start recirculating back around, or to move into areas where we've taken stuff out or whatever. So that in that scenario, I think if we stayed 2 weeks plus, we'd probably hit that valley and then probably come back up. We'd set up new areas or whatever. But generally in that 7-8 day check range trip on that, we seem to hit it fairly well, in terms of the way that works there. The last year when we were there, it rained every day we were there.
Last year was tough for everybody.
The whole country, exactly. And in fact, I think it just quit raining in Indiana about 2 weeks ago. So we still got farmers planting fields for the first time. This is not second crop. So, yeah, it rained every day. Fortunately, being in the mountains, you knew where the water was standing or just where it would run off. So it was doable. We could get through it.
Be on the side of the hill instead of down in the bottoms.
Yeah. Of course, everything was muddy when you caught it or whatever, but we could at least function in it, whereas flat farm ground, that's really tough. And you can't drive it when no farmer wants you driving the fields when it's like that, you know. So that's probably in farm country, that's one of the best ways to lose ground is if you go in and tear something up, rut it up, or get your truck stuck or whatever, you know. So, but so anyways, yeah, you can deal with that really wet weather better in those hills than we could at home. So,
yeah.
But
So in Arkansas, y'all are trapping public ground, right?
Correct.
And in New Mexico, were y'all trapping public as well?
We had public the first 2 years we were there, and we really, I guess in retrospect, we really didn't do too bad. So as far as catch, I mean, the animals per square mile out there are not as great as they are here in the East, for sure. So we'd considering the circumstances, overall pretty decent. We hit one area on our last trip, one area of public that was, relatively speaking, relatively close to a population base, and that it was like the Dead Sea. I mean, it had been trapped pretty hard before we got there, and we were there in February, so that was a tough one, and we called that trip short. It snowed. 2 or 3 times on that trip, Justin?
Yeah,
for sure. So, and there was no sign of no tracks.
No tracks.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, you got a pretty quick indication of what's up. So then last year we our friend Adrian Romero, Trapper Adrian, the artist, he had a ranch, 52,000 acre ranch, private ranch that we were able to trap on, and basically the same thing there. They had year-round predator control, and probably slightly overgrazed by cattle, so there wasn't a lot there to hold prey species in a sense. And then the oddest thing about this, I mean, it was like having your own private national park. It was beautiful, it was awesome.
It definitely had the look and appeal.
Yeah, I mean, it was beautiful country. And the oddest thing about that one was that we didn't see any big game. We didn't see any antelope. We didn't see any mule deer. We didn't see any elk. It was like it was just
desolate.
Yeah, it was, which is so odd out there not to be seeing any of that kind of stuff. When you're out there all day long, right at light to as it's getting dark, not to see any animals at all. It was just so. Obviously, that kicks out. There's no mountain lions or anything going to be in there because we had mountain lion tags. And the ranch manager was like, we want this stuff caught. It's eating all our stuff that's here. It's like, well, I don't think it's here to eat your stuff because there's nothing here for them to eat. So it was that was another eye opener. It's just clearly. Probably part of the reason that we got permission to be there was because he'd probably given others easily permission too, So, anyways, like I said, we've kind of struggled down in New Mexico. That was a tough one, And we've talked to other Western trappers, and they're all like, well, you got to definitely be on the ranches. You got to be at the right places that where they're saving animals for you to take care of. But I've talked to a lot of trappers that have gone west from the east and that have run into the exact same scenario that we have, that they get out there and between the USDA Wildlife Services, state trappers, and then local fur trappers, and then every rancher carries a rifle in his truck. There's just and they do a lot of aerial shooting coyotes. That's a big deal. So, in fact, I talked to a guy here that was from New Mexico, met him for the first time here at the convention, and he was on a ranch. He just got it all set up, and then the rancher had told him, he said, "Hey, we'd like you to come up." So he got the whole ranch set up. It was a big ranch. I think it's like 90,000 acres. And then the ranch next door decided that they were going to fly for coyotes, so they went ahead and came over on their ranch as well. They killed 98 coyotes in 2 days with a helicopter. So, they're clearly the control of the coyote's important, but we as trappers can do that too, particularly when they were very apologetic. He was telling me they were very apologetic to him, but they still wanted the control. So. It's that Western perspective on that predator control or is definitely different than it is here in the East, for sure. So anyways, well, where we're from in Indiana, it's all grain crops. The ground's worth too much to run cattle on. So, as a grain farmer, so we don't. The farmers, they want them caught, but it's not high priority. So we don't have government trappers, and we don't have state trappers. We don't have USDA trappers other than people that come in and work on hogs. So we usually got plenty of animals to catch. We're not used to going to areas where there's just wide expanses of no animals being there. So, so anyways, not to discourage anybody. We're going to go back, but at some point. But it's a whole different world for sure. So,
yeah.
But anyways.
So have you seen? Because y'all trapped in a couple years ago. Y'all trapped in North Dakota or South Dakota.
We went up and ran snares with Mark Steck.
Okay.
That owns Dakota Line snares.
Right.
And so we were on his line. So I mean, we helped him some, but we didn't. It was his line, and we were there, with him. So
right.
But
I was just wondering, from the Western perspective, is there really that many more animals out there? Because I mean, I see these guys that are doing like the coyote hunt, the coyote contest, and they're a weekend they're killing 30, 25, 30
right.
coyotes, in a couple of days, and
right.
that just seems outlandish for anybody in the East to be able to pull off.
Right. I think that if they got areas that they've saved for that contest, or that they know where they're at and whatever, I think that is doable. For one thing, they can certainly see them way better than we can.
That's true.
Because they got the wide open span areas, and I will say with Mark Steck's situation, he was in an area that evidently didn't have the year-round predator control or predator pressure that we have run into in some states. Because he was in the, what do you say, the year before that we were there, he caught 270 coyotes.
Yeah, it was up. It was up there.
Yeah, he had caught a lot of coyotes, and then that year that we were there, it had fallen off some, but he was well over 100, I think, by the time we got there. So he was doing very well.
Mm-hmm. Then you figure the weather, fighting blizzards.
Yeah, we came in on the tail end of a blizzard and left before another blizzard came through. So that
he didn't even dig his snares back out till spring.
Jeez.
He just couldn't get to him.
There was
buried.
Yeah, there would be. Of course, you're gonna got flat country generally, and then you get these big ravines off the. He was some of his ground actually overlooked the Missouri River, and these big ravines that would just be completely filled with snow drifts. So I mean, it was probably 20, 30 feet drifts at least, maybe even more. So I mean, those snares were not going to be. It's a whole different.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. For those of you that watched that footage that we put up from that trip, he was. I mean, we'd spent a lot of time digging his Honda Pioneer out, 4-wheel drive Honda Pioneer. Of course, when you get those stuck and it's a 4-wheel drive, then it's really stuck.
Right.
Using the winch, all that kind of stuff. So it was being from Indiana. I appreciated our milder weather.
Yeah. So how does because I know y'all have come down to Mississippi before. How does that southern trapping stack up to your Indiana trapping, your back home trapping?
Well, I feel like I always say this, and we've never done it, but I feel like if we put the amount of time traps set, as we do in the South, and did it at home, I think we would flat burn them up.
If we had that time available. If we had that time available
that's
to us,
right. Yeah, it's hard. But it's not giant tracts of land. We'd have to go out, line up farm to farm, build a line that makes sense, loop, I think we could, we're catching a little bit better quality of an animal, I'd say.
At home?
Yeah, at home.
By far.
So that kind of makes it, pushes you to try and do that at some point, try and line something like that up. But in the South, man, there's days where we were, on fire.
Yeah.
And so you have that mentality. We did Arkansas for I don't even know how many years in a row. then you go out to New Mexico and be like, man, we're wide open. How are we going to pinpoint this? Then you find out all the other stuff that we just got done talking about the control and the guys, all the damage, the work they're putting on them. And it's like kind of discouraging to some degree. But when you land that bobcat that's worth $500 or whatever it is, and, high dollar coyotes, you get kind of fired up about just catching a single animal.
Yeah.
And, then you're like, well, that's the trade-off. When you catch something, it's worth something, and,
Kind of a nice bonus. Yeah.
Sure.
Other times down in the South, there's a lot of times where it's just like, man, it's not worth skinning, and just straight up. But it's still fun either way, just a different challenge, different way to look at it. But
here's an interesting observation from being in Mississippi, which the animal, we were there in February, right?
Mm-hmm.
So early February, and there's not much fur on those critters as compared to the north.
Right.
But they were fully prime. I mean, like the gray foxes, the leather was fully white, raccoons fully white. It's just, so they prime just like ours do, but they just don't develop the degree of heavy fur like as you go further north. So kind of interesting there. What was interesting is we had a high fence deer hunting place that wanted us to come in and do catch whatever we could there for control.
Mm.
Well, it was kind of the same scenario as New Mexico. Those guys had worked on that stuff in that fence, and so there wasn't much within that fence. And it was, I think it was 1,200 acres fenced with, and then they were managing it for whitetail deer, and it was a very wealthy enclosure, and it was for like oil clients and crazy. But yeah, there was not much in there. I think we did catch a cat in there, but
did we?
Some gray fox, but
I know we connected on some fox. I'm trying to think of the cat. I don't remember.
We didn't catch a coyote, and
no coyotes, and that's what they were mainly concerned about.
I mean, how many times over the years I'm sure you've run into this where somebody says, "Oh my gosh, I got a terrible coyote problem," or I've got a terrible beaver problem, or whatever, and there's like one beaver living there, or there's two beavers living there, or coyotes are occasionally passing through, or and you go out and I'm sure you run into that scenario, with landowners or whatever.
Yeah, everybody you talk to, there's 30 or 40 coyotes back there.
I see them every night.
You catch two and you feel good, and the landowner's disappointed. It's like, man, I can't win for losing.
Yeah.
What was cool about that property though is they had like this slough that connected close to the river, and that was a section there that was low bottom where they would have kind of a swampy. So we were able to connect on at least one otter, then a few beaver, so that we weren't just in there for predator or land trapping. So
right.
That kind of made it fun, just kind of diversity in there.
Actually, it had that lake in there that the river long ran.
Oh yeah.
So it had crossovers, and our buddy Lee, who invited us down there, he set that up first, and I think he caught 2 or 3 otters on that, where the otters were coming up out of the river into the lake, going back and forth. So that was pretty no-brainer, just set up some body traps and catch them. But so that was kind of cool. But yeah, as far as predators, they'd worked on the predators pretty good.
I think what set him off is what he bought. What kind of deer? Some exotic he had in there. And I remember he had
Sitkas or something.
Were they Sitkas? No, they were fallow
deer.
Fallow deer. And I think I don't remember the head count, but I think he spent around $15,000 to have these things in there, and they were dead within a couple months or something like that. So, I mean, clearly he had a problem at some point, and they made sure they took care of it. And unfortunately for us, that was already done before we got in there. But
it's kind of that landowner, farmer, rancher paranoia that, if you see a track of whatever, then there's obviously a problem.
Yeah.
So I know Mark Stack, when we were up there in South Dakota, he was on. It's actually on Indian reservation land, a lot of that, and then the Indians within the reservation would own big tracts of ground that he would have permission from them, because they'd have a pretty good sized cattle operation or whatever. So, but the one specifically that he talked about, that guy he just hated coyotes. So the only coyote that was good was a dead coyote, and so of course Mark was his best friend, because Mark was killing coyotes. So it was worked out for both of them, I guess. But So, do you do a lot of beaver control then?
I do some. It typically the way when I get a property and it varies. Some of my properties are, most of my properties are fairly small, 100 to 500 acres, and most of them I'm doing before and after work, so I can't run a whole lot anyway. And so when I go to a property, I try to set for everything that's there. Most of the times, if it's a smaller farm, it's got a farm pond, so a lot of times there's otters passing through. They're hit or miss as to whether there's going to be beavers, and so. If I see sign there, I try to set it up that way when I go through. I'm not just running a half dozen coyote traps. I'm checking my beaver traps. I'm checking coon traps and trying to make it worth my while to be there. And then outside of trapping season, I also do damage stuff. Beavers I live near a couple of large lakes, and so beavers on those lakes and different landowners contact me. So
the fur that you catch during first season, so are you selling live market coyotes, or are you doing you just skinning and scraping everything? Or
I skin everything. I when I first got started, I got started with those guys in the Trappers Association. Live market was real big then. That's what all of them did. So, and they kind of would help me out. And the biggest issue that I've always run into myself is, for one, I'm kind of in the northern part of the state, and all the pens are typically in the southern part of the state.
Okay.
And it's, if you don't know somebody, if you don't know a guy that knows a guy or know a guy that runs one of the pens, it's tough to get in, and they'll buy from you, but they're going to give you half what they would give somebody else. One of their regular guys. Right. Then that makes those other guys mad because you're undercutting them, and so I've still got the pen that I had set up and all my cages and all, but it's too much of a hassle. And I feel like, honestly, with some of the landowners, because there's still some of that going on around me. And when I'm approaching a new landowner and I tell them when a coyote leaves here, it's going to be dead. Some of them like that. I think that buys me, that gets me access versus carrying them out there live, and they just think they're going to come right back. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. That's probably a good point. So being in a southern state and, with the fur market the way it is, do you sell locally then, or are you shipping to North American fur auctions or fur harvesters, or? So
up to this point, I've always shipped to NAFA.
Okay.
And I've still got some fur up there from last season at NAFA. And when I first started, there was a guy that was selling trapping supplies and buying fur in the state. He got out of it, and so there's nobody in the state that's really buying. And so I've always shipped to NAFA. With the markets being like it's been, I got my feelings hurt the last couple of years. So I've tried to start doing some other things. So last year and this year, I just got some back, but I've sent some hides off to have tanned, but tan them hair off for the leather.
Okay.
And so I've started kind of making some things out of the leather and kind of figuring that out, and just trying to think of something. I've got some that I'm having tan hair on too. And I'm going to try to make some things out of those, some pillows and some of the stuff that we've seen in here, just to try something different. Because if I can put a little bit of time into it and get better than what I'm getting out of NAFA, and not have to ship it off and on, trying to figure out something different that'll make it a little more worthwhile,
Right. So are you tanning like coyotes and coons hair off then?
Yep.
Really?
I think about one of everything. I've had coyote, bobcat, otter. I just got a gray fox back. That was the first gray fox that I've had tanned hair off. Beaver. Let's see. Possums so thin skin. I didn't have any possums, but yeah. So I've had just about all the main fur bearers. I hadn't had the heart to tan a red fox hair off yet, but
you got to be the first person I've talked to that's done that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I got to thinking. I've noticed kind of leather work and leather making has seemed to kind of be popular lately. Anyway, there's a lot of folks making things, and I just got to thinking about it. I said, I've never seen any kind of animal leather. I got to even thinking about coons and all the big coon hunting shows and competitions and things. And I was like, man, I bet if you went to, because there's a huge coon hunting competition in Albany, Georgia. I bet if you went down there and you had a bunch of coon hide wallets, you could probably sell out of every one of them, because it's and that's just what got to thinking about. I said, even trappers, and I I've been slow and kind of lazy about getting enough made to come to a convention or something. But that's just kind of exactly what I was thinking. Is that something I've never seen? Kind of be a novelty, something new. And honestly, the best, I've been selling some through Instagram and just folks messaging me, but so far the most popular thing that I've sold is actually beaver tail stuff, beaver tail wallets and things like that, which it's really sharp. I never done anything with them before, but that's a really sharp leather to begin with. But
Are you tanning those yourself, or are you sending them out?
I'm sending them all off.
Okay.
I had a couple. It's been several years ago. I tried to tan all my fur myself, and I figured out that I'm a lot better off sending them to somebody. So I don't try that anymore.
Yeah.
Get the garment quality.
Yeah, exactly.
It's we do have all our taxidermy tanning in house. We got the pressurized tanning tanks and the fur drums and all that, and shaving machines and all. But we still just to tan skins, just for the sake of somebody wanting a flat tan skin like what we're talking about here.
Right.
We can't justify it. I mean, there's just no way we can justify doing that. So we send all that out too. It's just. So the tannery, when you tell them you want hair off gray foxes and bobcats and coyotes, are they scratching their head at you? Or
Well, no, because I actually kind of did some research and found a tannery that's what they specialize in, is hair off.
Okay.
Deer and things like that. So I've sent some deer hides to them too, and that was they I think they kind of got a kick out of it because I sent some snapping turtle. That was one of the things that's kind of the way I found them, was I found their website had some tan snapping turtle skin, and I thought, man, that looks sharp.
Yeah.
And I catch a few snapping turtles every year, so I think that may have been the first time they've tanned some gray foxes and things like that, But that's kind of what they did, and so it worked out pretty good. They offer a bunch of different colors. You can have them dyed all kinds of different colors.
Right.
But it's been pretty neat.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah. Like I said, you got to be the first person I talked to that's done that. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. It's not something that I would have. That's kind of thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it kind of, you get a rubbed up late coon or something, it makes you kind of wonder, why not just get that hair off? I mean, the hair's already rubbed off of it.
I mean, a gray fox is beautiful fur, but the leather on those things is pretty fairly heavy.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, that would be it should be a good tough piece of durable leather, I would think.
Yeah,
so.
I think so. I think all of them. Some of them are pretty thin, so that's been something that I've kind of had to adjust to, because if you watch any of the videos on making stuff with leather, a lot of them are using veg tan cowhide, and it's real thick, and all this stuff is real thin, so I'm either having to back it with cloth or fabric, or use a piece of cowhide in there too to give it some structure.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a learning curve too.
Right.
But
right. Interesting.
That's cool. You have to send me a picture or something on the snapping turtle
Yeah.
leather. I'm interested in that.
Yeah, I just got one. I messed around. The first batch I sent off, they got like a dozen different colors, and I was like, man, that's cool. So I had stuff tanned of all kinds of different colors. Well, most everybody wants either black or brown.
Right.
So,
Right.
That's this last batch I sent off, and I had everything tanned just a walnut brown, and I got a snapping turtle back, and it looked really sharp.
So are you just sending the skin off the snapping turtle, or is the shell attached then, or
Just the skin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you get two pieces. You get the front piece and then the back piece with the tail.
Gotcha. Okay.
Which it's limited of what you could do with that tail, but I've seen a knife sheath made out of that tail with the ridges going down that look pretty sharp. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just different,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Interesting. So, you guys are allowed to do turtles on commercially in your area and sell the skins and that kind of thing in your state?
I don't know. We've got some turtle trapping seasons and regulations, but I don't know anything about selling any parts of the turtles.
Okay.
And even where the markets are.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always, actually, last trapping season, I was messing around. And of course, we get in the South, we'll get warm spells in the 80s even during trapping season,
Right.
And I was out setting some beaver traps, and I saw a snapping turtle out sunning himself, and I was able to slip up and grab him. I guess the water temperature was still cool enough.
Yep.
And then in the process of doing that, I saw another big turtle in a hole, and I'd get kind of sidetracked. I wanted to catch him too, so just between fishing and catching them in 330s and beaver runs and things, I always wind up with a couple, and so I'll usually clean them and just messing around like everything else.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we have seasons in Indiana, but they shut the commercial end of it down a few years ago. So obviously it varies from state to state, but you're allowed to catch them and clean them and eat them and all that. But as far as selling,
you can't even. I don't even think you're supposed to be crossing the state lines with the shells or something to sell.
Yeah, I don't know.
You can't sell the shell or anything.
It's odd. So, well, not odd, but it's just the way they they took the commercial end of it out, which affected a friend of ours pretty drastically because he used to catch a lot of turtles. He'd sell a lot of
Was he
turtles.
doing snapping turtles or was he doing the
all of it? All of it.
Soft shells and snappers primarily.
Yeah, but even before that, when you when I was a kid, I remember going in the pet store and you could buy a slider.
Right.
But then the salmonella outbreak, they shut that down.
Right.
But anything that was in that net that was a turtle, he had a way for it to sell it. Either it was a pet at the pet store or it was at the local restaurant for the meat.
Right.
Then of course they'd make claw back scratchers out the hands and things like that. But a lot of that went away where it just only was working meat for him.
Mm-hmm.
Then even that's been pretty much done.
So did you have any coyotes on the NAFA sale this past?
No,
late
all
May
my
sale?
coyotes sold. I had a couple of beavers that sold and a couple of raccoons, which I was actually pretty impressed with the prices I got off of them. I guess trying to judge, I think it's my better fur that has stayed this long, and so I actually had a couple of coons that sold for $12, which for me is fantastic.
Yeah, and
I had a beaver that even sold for $20. So
really?
Yeah, I was really really proud of that.
Yeah, that's very good. NAFA typically, if they're going to hold anything, they're only going to hold the good stuff. If they can get offers on the poorer quality stuff and the smaller sizes, they generally will sell it and move it on through. So yeah, it's normally if something goes beyond a couple sales and you still own it, it's usually the better stuff. So, which it's kind of, some guys get, we're a NAFA receiving agent, so some guys get all upset about them not selling their fur and holding it for a year or two, and it's like, well, first of all, generally the people that are complaining about it don't necessarily need the money, so it's like, I don't. It's just the idea that they want the slate cleared, but it's on the other hand they're doing that for your benefit because normally it's because they'll get a better offer. They just don't want to, and they want to prop the market up. They don't want to sell it too cheap and lower the market and lower the appraised value to a point. But I was just every now and then you just get a check. I think it's kind of nice too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's neat out of the blue to see what's going on.
Especially if it's a nice surprise like a $20 Georgia beaver.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And it's kind of sad. We're just talking. A lot of the beavers now just all go to the hatter market, or the felt market for cowboy hats and that type of felt hats, and so really good quality northern beavers are going to that market, which is kind of sad because it the way things are, there's just not a demand for that better quality beaver in the more traditional use. Well, that's a very traditional use, but generally they don't use that higher quality beaver for the felt, So, but anyways, so somebody evidently needed a Georgia beaver that fit in somewhere else for some sort of fur use, I guess.
I guess so. I was glad they did.
So, Kris, do you have a product line too? I mean, are you selling trapping any?
So, I do I've got an online course that I've been selling that's very basic intro to trapping, or intro to coyote trapping is specific to that. And then I've recently, I've messed around a little bit with selling some lure packages, and I still sell some lure packages, and then some supplies, but I struggled to make that work, especially with shipping. I figured out that wasn't something that I wanted to fight with, so I have come out this year with a trapping bag. I used it all last year, and it's made. I'm making it out of vinyl coated polyester, vinyl coated polyester, and it's a full. The seller for me is it's big enough that all your tools can fit in it, not be hanging out the end, or
Mm-hmm.
it's very specific for land trapping.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's kind of what I've been trying to tinker on and figure out how to do a little something more to make my trapping endeavors a little bit worthwhile. And so that's kind of what I've come up with so far, is between that and the leather stuff.
Mm-hmm. So how do people get in contact with you? Do you have a website then? Or?
Yeah, I've got a website, Coyote Trapping School. You
Okay.
can purchase the bag off of there, or you can shoot me an email or message me on any of the platforms that I'm on, and I can get you fixed up.
Okay.
Was cool. I checked it out.
The talking about the shipping. That's a tough one. And we just do the standard shipping and handling chart like everybody else does.
Right.
Yeah, you got to work all of the angles on that to make all that work.
Right.
And there's still cases where you're just on the short end of the stick as the seller.
Yeah.
It's very tough. It's very, very tough. So, and then when you're up against Amazon that has the stuff to you the next day, or in some cases maybe even the same day, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
1 hour.
Yeah, for Amazon Prime, no shipping costs.
Right.
I don't know how that's, but yeah, shipping is very difficult. So
Yeah, that was. I give a lot of credit to anybody that's doing, especially in trapping, because everything is heavy except for lures. You know,
Right.
everything's heavy and bulky and awkward. And I appreciate everybody that's doing it, because I figured out, like with the tanning, that's not something I want to be doing.
yeah.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's guys come in and they say, "Well, I'll just try tanning it myself," and some people just enjoy doing that as something to do, and then but most of them are like, one time doing that, it's like, all right, well, we need an alternative. We'll pay you guys to do it, or whatever. But so the online course, that's through like a Patreon then?
No, it's all its own. It's all through my website.
Okay.
You pay there, and you get your access to. It's 9 modules, and like I said, right now it's geared strictly towards coyote trapping. I'm working on this summer expanding that to a little bit of everything: beavers, raccoons, but it's all real basic. I mean, basic even so far as how to set a trap.
Okay.
The one thing that I figured out when I started doing these videos and all is we take for granted how much we know, and
Exactly.
We
Yeah.
skip right past some of the fine-tuned details of something that's so simple, but if you don't know, you don't know.
Right,
For the new
right.
guys.
And so that's what I kind of tried to approach it as, if all you've ever done is seen it on YouTube or read about it, how do you need to go about getting ready to trap from supplies and mindset and locations and equipment to where to sit, how to sit, skinning and fur handling and all that. So
Mhm. The state of Indiana, it's a national program, the R3 program. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
The recruitment and retention and reactivation.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The state of Indiana kind of adopted that as one of their
Kind of their main focus this year.
for this year for 2019. So just because the numbers of outdoor people that are active in the outdoors have declined, so they want to bring more people back to the outdoors. So anyways, Justin and I spent a day at the program that they put on, which was excellent. And so we got an idea that their thoughts are that we need to maintain our youth programs, but we're overlooking the older people, adults that are interested in these activities but really don't know where to start. Generally they'll make the time if they're interested to do it, and then they have the financial resources to buy the equipment to go do it as well, that they just need some level of knowledge to go do it. So we're having in fact, it's a week from today it's at our shop. We're calling it a Trapping Summit, but it's geared towards people that haven't trapped, that are interested in trapping, but they're overwhelmed by the idea of it, which, like you said, there's people that literally don't know how to set a trap, but they're interested in trapping. Or people that have trapped for a a couple 3 seasons and they're still just kind of struggling, or they still have we all have questions, we all got stuff to learn, and we've all run into issues, even at trapping for 40 years, you still run into stuff that maybe you're scratching your head, or but anyways, these people, so we can kind of revisit those guys. They can come in and address some things that, since they have a baseline already, that they've been out in the field, and hopefully work through some of their issues too, so and this is primarily, we're not going to turn anybody away as far as kids or whatever, but it's primarily geared towards adults. So, because I think what you're doing as far as your course, that's a great way to promote trapping and bring more people into it. And a lot of people looking from the outside in, it's pretty overwhelming. There's a lot to it, and we take for granted that. Well, we think, it's not that big a deal, but it really kind of is.
Right.
So, you go hunting, you can buy a gun, get a tree stand, whatever. You can go. Most people can figure out that. Yeah. To a point, but trapping's a little more involved.
Yeah.
So anyways, we've got this that we're coming up, and I'm kind of excited about how that goes. We've got a number. We're going to limit it to 75 people, and we're there basically. With that course, and we're kind of. We're going to be being the first year. This is kind of the year that we'll have to work through our plan and adjust for the following years.
Right.
Or whatever. But kind of excited about it.
Yeah, that is pretty neat. It's funny you say that, because that's one thing that the people that have actually bought my course tend to be, I'd say, 55 to 60 plus years old.
Really?
Yep. And they're and I open it up front, tell everybody, you can find all the information that's in my course on YouTube. And, even from my mindset, I think I would probably be the one that would try to cheap out and try to jump around on YouTube. But like you said, those are the folks that they don't want to mess around.
Right.
They want to go, and it's all lined out step by step, and they'd rather pay $100 and just have access to it and be able to go through it and order their supplies and be done.
Right.
And so it's funny you say that, because that's kind of exactly what I've seen so far too. A lot of the interest is from older folks that are wanting to get into it, and
they got the financial resources to do it. They've got the time to do it, and they've probably been thinking about it for a long time.
Yep.
But
just got to jump in.
Yeah. That's right.
Just give them an avenue to start.
Yeah.
But I will say, I'm trying to think. It was probably just like a week ago. I pulled up one of your videos I came across, and I'm sure the guys that take the course and stuff that can really appreciate it, and why it's probably worth it, other than just trying to find something on YouTube.
Right.
You got to take some of that stuff with a grain of salt. Not everyone knows what the heck they're doing, but you do a good job, I noticed, on really, and we try to do this too, is spelling things out, the stuff that we've talked about that are, we take for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And not only are you talking about it, but you did a good job showing it, and that was on the dyeing and waxing process.
Yeah.
And we've shown that too, but you were showing the comparison to the other alternatives.
Right.
And you had them laid out right in a line, and I could really appreciate that. I was like, man, that's the way to show. So you got the visual and step by step. I mean, it was a pretty lengthy video.
Yeah.
But you got everything that you wanted.
Right.
I mean, there was no, you didn't really have to figure out what was going on afterwards. You pretty much put it out there. And so I'd say that you did a good job with that one for sure. So I imagine most people are pretty satisfied when they go through your course. So
yeah, I get that's one of the I guess non-monetary benefits of doing what I do to begin with, is just the folks that'll shoot me an email or send me a picture, say, hey, I caught my first coyote the other day or something like that. Man, that's an awful rewarding feeling to
love those
to be able to help folks figure that out. So.
Yeah. And the even going to a trappers convention like this, which is a wealth of knowledge, and the seminars are excellent. We've got the best trappers giving the demos and that kind of thing. But they're, as far as they're disjointed. So you got this guy on coyote and this guy on coyote, but they're not walking you through from like a start to finish type. You know what I mean? It's very specific to maybe the sets or whatever angle this guy's has in his how-to demo. So, and then, going through YouTube, and if you don't know anything or you don't have a baseline, then you really don't even know which one's valid and which one's not, and they are disjointed. So, you got stuff that's very valid, good instruction, but it's not walking you through start to finish. So
Right.
it's not going through the trap adjustment. It's not going through trap prep. It's not going through. It may just be showing you how to make a set or whatever. You know. So that complete course idea, I think, is where a lot of guys, they miss that, or they don't realize that there's more to it than that, and they probably become frustrated by watching something that's only telling you part of the story, or giving you part of the information.
And from my aspect, even a lot of the trapping videos, somebody new that comes to a convention, even if they get some of the trapping videos, there's still a lot of those. There's a baseline level of expectation that
that they assumed that you knew.
Right. And so even if you buy some of the good videos that'll really show you a lot about coyote trapping, they may not tell you those first few steps that you really need if you're starting from ground zero.
Right.
So.
That was one thing we tried with the DVD, the coyote video that put out several years ago. We wanted a complete course of just walking them through it. So kind of a start to finish instruction, essentially. And then if they can get you to that point, then you can start developing your own style. But you need these fundamental basics is what you have to master first, and you will find that I think a lot of trappers find that they'll start going off in all these different directions and making all these fancier sets and all this stuff which is fine, but it's generally they'll, after they get over that period of their trapping career or whatever you want to call it, they'll start going back to generally being more basic and more fundamental. I think some guys just way overthink it and make it way overcomplicated. So, but
For sure.
Well,
Cool.
guys, should we any concluders before we wrap this up and get back to the booth?
yeah, y'all got work to do still. So.
No, I mean, we just went, for people listening, a lot of these are just basic things that we want to cover, and then other than that, we just be as natural and free as possible. So it's all on the spot questioning. Whatever topic comes up is what it is what it is, and a lot of times that works out pretty. It's just easier, the natural flow of things. So, well, I think we covered a lot of different topics, random, just jumping around. So it was kind of cool. One thing I'd like to do real quick, and this can be a real fast, kind of a yes and no answer. It'd be just kind of fun. But Kris, what's your favorite animal to trap? We'll just do this little rundown and see how this works.
I'd probably say coyote.
Coyote?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd say the same. Is that
same. Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Love the challenge of a coyote. Okay. 4-coil or 2-coil?
2-coil.
Yep. We're in the same boat.
Yeah. Unless the trap weakens up over time, and then you need to add it. But
Right.
And the guys. Well, that's a whole nother story. That's where it's supposed to be yes.
Yeah.
and no.
Yes and no, Charlie.
Don't
We're
get
gonna
me on a rant.
Yeah. Okay. Favorite bait and lure, if you have one, combination. Or, if you don't have one, you don't have one,
I'd
you
say
jump around.
Mine changes year to year. I try to use. I've had good luck on Rusty Johnson's Lucky over the last couple of years. His Lucky bait.
Rusty's,
I've liked it a lot.
Okay.
And he's from your state.
Yep, he's from Georgia.
So
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
What about you, Charlie? What's your favorite combo? We've talked about this.
Well, our Top Dog and Vixen Elixir. That's our go-to deal. So
Yeah. And, Charlie's, that's always his go-to, but I don't want to be exactly like him.
Yeah.
So I got to come up with my own avenue. Obviously the Top Dog, but I really do enjoy using that black gold that we have. So that's probably, and it changes. It's kind of like my music taste. Sometimes it's like, man, I love when I hear some rock and roll, and then the next week I'll be like, man, I want to hear some honky-tonk music, just whatever I'm feeling. But right now I'm black gold and Top Dog. Then let's think of one more. What else? How about, since you pick all your fur up, how about wood or wire?
I'm kind of a mixture. The most of what I put up is coons, and so I go modified wire. I got wire on the top and wood on the bottom to nail them out.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Charlie? wire?
I'm mixed. So I still use wire for coyotes. I think it's easier, and it works just fine. And then generally I'm using better quality coon I'm putting on wood, and the coons that aren't so good, they're going on wire. Mm-hmm. So this is supposed to be a short answer one.
Yeah.
So.
Well, a brief explanation's fine.
So
yeah, that's fine.
But any commercial production by any type of fur buyer is always done on 100% wire. They have none of them have any time for wood stretchers. So
right. And I'm in the same boat, mixed.
Yeah.
Just if it's good, looks like a really good animal, and I want to make it look sharp, I'll probably put it on wood. Other than that, it's just wire. Just get it done. Do a good job, put it up, get it out of there.
There you go.
All right.
Let me as a concluder,
okay.
I want to thank Kris for what you're doing for promotion of trapping, and that our philosophy or perspective is kind of the same way. I mean, it's obviously for it's good for business and
sure.
but in the bigger picture, I feel like we're doing a lot just to promote the trapping as a good activity for people to do, whether it's primarily recreational, provide maybe some income or help pay some expenses, and then of course we've got people that want to control their predators on their deer hunting leases or whatever. So, but anyways, I just appreciate what you're doing and appreciate you giving me the information that you do, and so I think it's very important, that we all stick together. We're all in this together.
That's exactly right.
So I think that's really important.
I appreciate it. It was good meeting y'all up here. So how for folks that are listening on my end, so this is going to be a dual podcast,
right?
Coyote Trapping School and the Trap House podcast.
Yep.
So how do folks find y'all? Where?
Okay. We have our YouTube, Hoosier Trapper Outdoors. If you just type in Hoosier Trapper Outdoors on YouTube, it'll come right up. Or you can go to our business page, HoosierTrapperSupply.com, and all that information's on our homepage. As far as the videos for both Hoosier Trapper Outdoors and the Fur Shed series, and then Justin's he heads his podcast up, so the Trap House podcast,
yep.
And you can even listen through the podcast through the website as well. So
yeah, and of course all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, all that.
All at Hoosier Trapper Outdoors or Hoosier Trapper Supply.
Supply would be the best to go, but we do have a Hoosier Trapper Outdoors Facebook page for itself, just about the show in general. And I did start something cool, and it's already taken off. It's only been up for 2 days. A private group for trappers.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's called the Catch Circle, and anyone's welcome. If it's trapping related, we're going to welcome it on there. As long as it's not showing something that would hurt our industry or what we do, and, shows us in a good light, anything, advertise your school on there. Jump on there. Or, your class.
Yeah. It's available to anyone. As long as everybody's is respectful of the other person and
there's rules on there. You'll see them. And they're not, crazy over the top or anything, but just don't, I put it in there, just don't be a jerk.
Right.
And everybody will have a good time.
Right.
So.
Yeah, we're kind of talked about this before we got started, that trappers are hard on themselves, and they want to bash somebody else for doing such a thing, something else, or it's like, we're all in this together. There's enough room for various opinions, and just because someone does something that you don't necessarily do doesn't mean that they're doing it wrong. So
that's right.
We want to try to convey that we're all in this together, and we don't need to be picking on our own kind.
Yeah,
so.
for sure.
So. Yeah, one example of that, too, on that page, real quick. Somebody had posted a picture. He had a conibear. He caught a beaver, but didn't realize it. He thought somebody had stole his stuff. Well, he found it that spring or whenever. Later on, once the dam cleared out, there was a skull in a 330. So, it was dispatched, so nothing was, suffering or anything like that.
330 body.
It was dead as dead. He just missed out on having the end product for him to sell or whatever. And, instead of just saying, well, we don't need to see that, the guy didn't check his trap or whatever, I said, I'm just going to leave it and post under it. Like, well, stake that bad boy down, cable it off, wire it off, and I wasn't beating him up about it. This stuff happens out there in the field, and some people just underestimate the power of a beaver. They think, well, he's going to swim in that thing, snap, and it's dead. Well, now those things thrashed are big, strong, stout animals. It thrashed around and probably jumped off its stabilizer and was gone and then to the deep end. But, so other people can probably see that and maybe learn from it. So those sort of things, are good to key in on. But I just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
That's it. The two Hoosier boys and the Georgia Bulldog are signing off.
There we go.
All right, we'll see you next time, guys.
See ya.
All right, one more thing before we let you trappers go. We got the product highlight here. One of Charlie's Leatherwood Creek trapping scents. It's the Black Gold Predator lure. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Kind of depending on what day you ask me, it's either the Vixen Elixir or this one right here, the Black Gold. Since I mentioned that one on this episode, I think we'll go in a little bit more detail on why it's good. But it is based on a classic formula of beaver castor muskrat glands. And, of course, there's other attractants in there that I'm not allowed to really talk about. But the main basis are those rat glands in the beaver castor. Every animal you can probably imagine is going to respond to that beaver castor alone. And everything likes it. Everything's attracted to it. It's got a really different smell. And it works great on fox, bobcats, coyotes, the whole deal. All predators like it and so on. But another reason why I like it, it's not a straight liquid. It's got a little bit of a consistency in it. That's why we sell it in wide mouth jars. So you can kind of smear it. It has that residue kind of gummy feel. It's not like a Vaseline paste or anything like that, but it will definitely leave some residue behind. And say you're in some rainy elements or something like that, and you're kind of making a flat set or you're by a log, you can smear some of that, a little bit of that up under the log to get out of the elements. Of course, with your trap out in front of that. Just one way to look at it. But it has a different smell than a lot of the lures that I've smelt at conventions and other places that I've come across. I haven't really smelt one that's quite like this. But yeah, like I said, it's great. Give it a shot on your line this year. You can get it at HoosierTrapperSupply.com. 1 ounce bottle is $7. The 4 ounce bottle is $24. And you can order that online or call us here at the shop. Either way is good. But I'm sure you'll like it if you give it a chance. I think that's it. I'm actually going to sign off for real this time. But we'll see you in 2 weeks. Every other week we're going to release a new podcast. So keep that on your calendar every Friday. Alternating weeks. So we'll see you for episode 14 in 2 weeks. Thanks.